Hello, folks, and welcome. I'm kind of excited by the fact that we're here so early, but most of the staff are still downstairs finishing their supper. So let me just explain how this is going to work. We're going to spend about a half hour, from 7 till 7:30, with an opportunity for you to talk to Bruce, Elizabeth, Christy, and Peter Bevanmaker, who's the leader of the Green Party of Prince Edward Island. So we're just making some coffee, and there's some cookies there. So feel free to stay seated if you want, but we're not actually going to sit down for the town hall until about 7:30. We'll run that from about 7:30 to 9. We're going to have some chamber music here, starting at 7. And then at 9, we're going to start off with a couple solo guitar acts. Apparently, Peter has brought his trumpet from Prince Edward Island, so he might be accompanying our guitar players. And then about 10 o'clock, we'll have Rocksteady that'll make a great deal of noise for those who don't like that. There you go. So I think the fact that you're here so early is a very positive sign for how highly esteemed Elizabeth May is. So thank you so much for coming, and I'm sorry we're quite ready for you. Yeah, the coffee is starting to go, I think. Yeah, so we should have coffee. Thank you. Okay. They're out here and just to the right. Okay.
She is an optimist, a fighter, a champion for our communities. But most of all, Green Party leader Elizabeth May is a proud Canadian, a knowledgeable, trusted national leader of substance who stands firm on what matters most to Canadians. She and the Green Party believe in a Canada that works together. It all starts with better leadership, and Elizabeth May has the strength of character to deliver. Elizabeth May, a real choice for Canadians. She is an optimist, a fighter, a champion for our communities. But most of all, Green Party leader Elizabeth May is a proud Canadian, a knowledgeable, trusted national leader of substance who stands firm on what matters most to Canadians. She and the Green Party believe in a Canada that works together. It all starts with better leadership, and Elizabeth May has the strength of character to deliver. Elizabeth May, a real choice for Canadians. She is an optimist, a fighter, a champion for our communities. But most of all, Green Party leader Elizabeth May is a proud Canadian, a knowledgeable, trusted national leader of substance who stands firm on what matters most to Canadians. She and the Green Party believe in a Canada that works together. It all starts with better leadership, and Elizabeth May has the strength of character to deliver. Elizabeth May, a real choice for Canadians. She is an optimist, a fighter, a champion for our communities. But most of all, Green Party leader Elizabeth May is a proud Canadian, a knowledgeable, trusted national leader of substance who stands firm on what matters most to Canadians. She and the Green Party believe in a Canada that works together. It all starts with better leadership, and Elizabeth May has the strength of character to deliver. Elizabeth May, a real choice for Canadians. She is an optimist, a fighter, a champion for our communities. But most of all, Green Party leader Elizabeth May is a proud Canadian, a knowledgeable, trusted national leader of substance who stands firm on what matters most to Canadians. She and the Green Party believe in a Canada that works together. It all starts with better leadership, and Elizabeth May has the strength of character to deliver. Elizabeth May, a real choice for Canadians.
was a good press conference, which was cool. We're just getting set now for the 7:00. Perfect.
I should say congratulations on your win out of
Thank you. I
Prince
know.
Edward
I'm so
Island, yeah.
sorry. I should have stopped
that's
and
okay.
said hi. I
Oh, yeah.
left my cell phone sitting on the table.
Oh yeah, the last thing you want to do is forget about it, that's for sure. We've all done that, yeah. Luckily, it's a fairly safe area still.
So you live here?
I live here, yep. Yeah, I ran provincially. Yep.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and so helping Bruce now, I'm vice president of the riding. Was president, but things were a little too cliche. I got all my kids with me, 3 of my kids with me. Yep, that's, there's my 14-year-old and 1-year-old. Oh yeah.
Hello. I'm Peter.
That was quite exciting to watch that night.
Oh, you are?
Oh, who was it, I think? Oh, she'll probably get more. No, I think I've had enough for now.
Was that your one?
Run? Yep, that was my first time running. Oh, probably, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, challenging when you're a single parent this time, but. Oh. Not a lot of help that time, but just nature of the beast. The provincial wing has so few volunteers right now. It's tough because we've never cracked 5%. Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see how this goes. Oh yeah. True enough, you never know. smashing into the boards hard. Smashed into the boards, laid on the ice for about 20 seconds. Yeah. And she get, yeah, and the coach had her sit on the side for a little bit and then let her in the game and just got twice. Almost had the hat trick. Oh, yeah. Oh, it was extremely. And afterwards, the coach was just amazing because it's the first game in this league. And probably last year she was doing this almost every game, scoring a goal or two. So it's just fun. I'm hoping she does well. It's fun when you be proud of your kids. Oh, yeah.
Right, you should have it, but
She is an optimist, a fighter, a champion for our communities. But most of all, Green Party leader Elizabeth May is a proud Canadian, a knowledgeable, trusted national leader of substance who stands firm on what matters most to Canadians. She and the Green Party believe in a Canada that works together. It all starts with better leadership, and Elizabeth May has the strength of character to deliver. Elizabeth May, a real choice for Canadians. She is an optimist, a fighter, a champion for our communities. But most of all, Green Party leader Elizabeth May is a proud Canadian, a knowledgeable, trusted national leader of substance who stands firm on what matters most to Canadians. She and the Green Party believe in a Canada that works together. It all starts with her leadership, and Elizabeth May has the deliver. Elizabeth May, a real choice for Canadians. She is an optimist, a fighter, a champion for our communities. But most of all, Green Party leader Elizabeth May is a proud Canadian, a knowledgeable, trusted national leader of substance who stands firm on what matters most to Canadians. She and the Green Party believe in a Canada that works together. It all starts with better leadership, and Elizabeth May has the strength of character to deliver. Elizabeth May, a real choice for Canadians.
pictures. There's lots of people here. The pictures should go off pretty good.
Oh, I'm sure I love it.
Oh, I'm glad you found it. You were into a kid.
Yeah.
You should keep a portable pen in your pocket.
I'm fine. requested Nathan that you collect some samples. Yes. I can understand that. It works out well. Now it's just someone wants to make a donation to the, yes, it's a check. To Chrissy Radwell, or is it Chris Radwell? Okay.
You want to sit on the end? You want to sit on the inside?
I'll go in there. Hi, Brad. How are you?
Good to see so many people here tonight. This is actually your 10-minute,
Oh, all right.
9-minute now. Morning, so if you want to find a good seat, this is the time. If you, as a good friend of mine just said earlier, if you have to go, go now.
partner in your job. Believe me, I know. I was one once upon a time. I don't know if you know this. I worked my way through university. Yeah, blues and jazz. Had fun. But anyway, my tax days are done because of my tongue cancer and I haven't talked. So I'm just about this week probably, right after the election, I'm buying a hammer that you
about you. I mean, a lot about you.
You too. No, wouldn't have missed it. Excellent. Yes, I like you here. I haven't seen you for a while. Is that a new thing in the boat?
Renewed it last week.
Did you? Oh, well, there you go. How are things going? No. Well, I just told Bruce you got one of them.
Well, everyone counts.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm not supposed to be the one who starts, but I just want to say thank you all for being here. I love you, Thunder Bay. Thank you for being here.
Way back when, a year and a half ago, when a number of people, some of them in this room, kept saying, Bruce, you're really a Green. Why don't you join the Greens? And I said, you know, it's really hard to get elected as a Green, especially up here in the land of mining and logging, etc. And I said, you know, I probably can't get re-elected. They said, but it's the right thing to do, and you're really a Green. I go, that's true. So finally, I gave in. Plus, this woman is very, very persuasive. Have you noticed? So it's very hard to say no to her. So back in December of 2013, when asked by the media, so why are you doing this, Bruce? Why are you joining the Greens? I said there's three simple reasons. One is it's the only Democratic Party, the only one where you can represent your constituents and your conscience. And the second, it has quite an amazing platform. I even agree with 97% of it. Not 100% of it, as Elizabeth knows. But a really big part of it, is that we have the most amazing leader, She's a fine human being. Have you noticed that she's smart? Do I ever feel inadequate sitting next to her in the House of Commons? You know, I'll be sitting next to her and I'll say, Elizabeth, you really need to read this. And I put it in front of her, and 5 seconds later she looks away and I said, but you have to read it. She said, I just did. And then she remembers it a week later. There's stuff I said to Elizabeth like 29 years ago, roughly, about that she remembers. That's another reason why I have to be honest, because Elizabeth remembers every word that I say. So she's smart, she's kind, she's giving. She's sometimes tough, I will admit, but I need it from time to time. So it's a real joy to, in a minute, welcome Elizabeth to speak with you and to you. But first I want to introduce my running mate, Christy. Christy, come on, stand up. I really like it when Christy and I are in the same debates, especially when people say, somebody speak for the party. So if it's one of those difficult questions with lots of statistics and analysis and things, I think Christy will take it. She also has a photographic memory. So both of these women make me look good. I get to bask in their reflected glory and brains and personalities. So Christy, how about you say a few words? I know you'll be answering some questions along the way, but why don't you introduce yourself a little bit?
Well, what an amazing thing to see so many green faces. This is the I don't know. Green faces, you're all green, trust me. To me, we've been at 6 debates now, and we go out to the debates, and there's an assortment and a variety of colors represented there, and it's been just, this is fabulous to see the support for our party. What an amazing leader. People ask me, they said, you know, why would you run, A, for politics? It's a big question, and B, why the Green Party? And I said, well, have you met Elizabeth May? Because if you haven't, you have to. I really believe, I talked the last two debates about how one person really can make a difference, and even one voice, and even though you might not win that battle, like you're guaranteed to slow it down, and eventually they're going to win the war, so to speak, and that's really what I really believe in. The Green Party is that small little Goliath, or small little David standing in front of Goliath, and they've got the wherewithal, the knowledge, the skills, and really the bravery, courage to stand up to them, and that's what we need in America. That's what we need in America. We need it in America. We need it in America, but we're not there. So we need, you know, the problem is that Harper is so much like so many of our counterparts down south. And in fact, we were at a debate where one of ours quoted one of our conservative candidates. I think I could say that here. Quoted one of our leaders down south many times, and it was very frustrating because that's the last place we want to go as Canadians, honestly. So Elizabeth May's not taking us there. She's taking us in a bold new direction. The Greens are taking us in a bold new direction, and look forward to answering some questions tonight and meeting all of you if I haven't already met you. So thank you for coming out.
So there's one more person I want to introduce you to. Peter, stand up. Peter Bevan Baker is the first and the only, so far, member of the Legislative Assembly of Prince Edward Island. He's the leader of the Green Party. I call him my friend and my Renaissance man. He does all kinds of things. And one of them is, he's a very accomplished trumpeter. And tonight, if you stick around for the party, you know, we're renaming the Green Party. We're going to call it the Party Party. And so stick around, because from 9 to whenever you stop buying him beer, he's like me, he likes beer, you can get to enjoy him. So Peter, say a few words of welcome to being in Thunder Bay.
Thank you, Bruce, and I'm going to feel like a bit of an imposter here. I know you have two wonderful local candidates, and we have an international celebrity, and then there's me. But it's lovely to be here. I live a long way away in a place which is very different from here, and sometimes feels like it's in another country, but it's not. It's part of the wonderful diversity which is Canada, and I'm proud to belong to a party which is not afraid to embrace that diversity and to be inclusive and to welcome everyone. And it's just lovely to be here tonight. And Bruce mentioned about how hard it can be to be elected as a Green Party member. I failed 9 times and was elected on my 10th attempt as a Green Party candidate.
So I know a lot of you came to ask us hard questions, and Elizabeth's really good at those hard questions. I'm medium good. Oh, I'm sorry. Dawn Mowbray, the lady in green, surprise, surprise, is our writing president. And I met Dawn early in the summer, and she met me, and we had a coffee and a snack. And I was so impressed that I roped her into helping us. And before we knew it, she decided to accept the position as president of the Green Party of Thunder Bay Superior North. So, Dawn, would you please warm us up for this?
I didn't think I'd ever get a chance to talk. However, there is a little bit of housekeeping sort of stuff that I would like to do. Yeah. Yeah, oh, there we go. Okay, now we're good. So, welcome. It's really good to see all of you here. I am just so pleased that we have so many Green supporters, and you can make fun of my double glasses. It's okay, I can't read without them. And I'm so glad, thank you for coming out on this Thanksgiving weekend. I want to thank our musicians that were playing at the back. Thomas, I believe all of them are with the Thunder Bay Symphony Orchestra. Yes. Thank you guys. I want to thank Nathan and Riaz, and I don't know if both of, or one of you at least is here, for setting everything up for us. They've done a lot of work to make it possible for us to be here. There's no point in me introducing the front. That's good. Now, I'm just going to give you a few instructions. Tonight, you'll have the opportunity to ask questions to specific people or to all of them. You need to keep the questions short and brief. If you go on for a long time, the mic just disappears. There are no timers, but you will politely be asked to get to the point. We will be using a roving mic system. And last time it was Michael who was going to be carrying the mic around. But if he is gone, it'll be me. So you need to just wave, put your hand up, and let us know that you have a burning question that you want answered. Yeah, this mic is really tricky, so you need to keep it close, apparently. So following this time with Bruce and Elizabeth and Christy and Peter, there will be appetizers served at the back. Your nose will tell you when they arrive. And then after that, after we've enjoyed having questions answered and hearing them chat, we've got some fabulous musicians. Tina Flank, Kyle Milton Shushak, and Rocksteady is going to be here tonight. So you may have noticed when you came in, we have a table at the back that has a bunch of information. You can sign up and volunteer. You can make a donation. As you know, this campaign has been extra long, and it gets expensive, even though Greens are known for reuse, recycle, and shop at the thrift store. It still is expensive, a campaign. So if you're able to donate, we really appreciate that. A little later, you're going to see a slide presentation behind the musicians, and I just want to take time to thank my daughter, who spent hours and hours pulling the hundreds of slides out from the last 6 to 8 months that we've been on the campaign trail, which actually unofficially started much earlier. It's a montage of our beautiful region, and not just the beautiful landscape that we have, but the beautiful people who live in this region. And beautiful people, Bruce Heyer really does work hard for you. I'm Dawn Mowbray, the president of the Thunder Bay Superior North Riding Association, Green Party of Canada Riding Association, and I'm voting Green.
Two more things to do before we start. The first is Sam the artist, handy. Sam the artist, where are you? Sam, please.
He's in the embassy room.
See if we can find him. Okay. This is worth waiting for. Come on, Sam. Come on, Sam. Sam has a gift for Elizabeth May. It's a beautiful piece of art of guess whom? No, not me. And it's in green ink. And I'll leave it in the bag because I'd like to pass it around. But sure, show it to Elizabeth first. Isn't that lovely? So everybody thanks Sam. Later, buy Sam a beer. Hold it. Now I'd like to see if Mary Klezak would please come up. Mary, oh, you're there. Mary Klezak is the principal trumpeter with the Thunder Bay Symphony Orchestra. Do you see a certain recurring theme here tonight? Later it gets a little different. But Mary is a superb trumpeter, and she has a Green Party sign on her lawn and fence. and she would like to now welcome Elizabeth Bay to Thunder Bay. So now we're on the firing line here, on the receiving end of it, and we're here to, one thing you have with three of us, and Peter may want to jump in on a few of the questions, you have three honest people. So don't ask us, three plus one is four. Most days I am. And I have to be honest because, as I told you, my memory's not good enough to remember lies. It just works better if I tell the truth. But anyway, if you want to hear straight answers, give us straight, short, brief, to-the-point questions. We look forward to them. Comments are welcome too, up to a certain point. I'm the Speaker of the House tonight, and so if I have to call the Sergeant of Arms, who's at the back, I'll let you know. So. Anything else, Elizabeth, before we start? Oh, Elizabeth would like to, surprise, say a few words.
Yeah. He told me I was supposed to, so I just thought, let me just first check, because there's an awful lot of people at the back. Anyone who has an empty chair near you, could you just put up your hand? Some of you who are at the back, there still are some seats around. So please try to find, and there's some against the wall there. There's some against the wall over here. So do make yourself at home. This is a fantastic turnout. And I really want to start by thanking you, as I did when I first walked in the door. This is a terrific gathering and a terrific way to start a town hall to have it so full. So I want to thank you so much, but please do find yourself a seat and don't worry. Now, while I'm asking you questions, you've got your hands up for where there's an empty seat. But out of curiosity, for how many of you is this the first time you've ever gone to a Green Party event of any kind? Hallelujah! Hallelujah! Okay. So I'm going to assume that not all of you have made up your mind, that you're taking advantage of the fact that the leader of the federal party is here, and your two candidates, Thunder Bay Rainy River, Christy Radbourne, Thunder Bay Superior North, Bruce Heyer, and just as an added benefit, we have Peter Bevan Baker. You talked about how hard, he talked about how often he ran. He didn't tell you that, like every Green Party member of a legislature provincially, there are now three, New Brunswick, PEI, and British Columbia, where there are Green Party members of the legislature who've been elected. And me, I won my seat in Saanich Gulf Islands on May 2nd, 2011. All four of us have in common that we defeated sitting cabinet members. It's kind of interesting. And all four of us have in common that we had uncommonly high voter turnout. That's the secret sauce for the Green Party. You might be wondering, what is it about the Green Party? Where's their secret sauce? The secret sauce is we're offering something that isn't on the menu from other parties. And it makes people who don't usually order off the menu decide they're prepared to show up and vote. So in my riding, we had, on May 2nd, 2011, 75% voter turnout. And the national average is 60. So other than a couple little ridings, I hope I'm not diminutive about Prince Edward Island, but they're kind of little. There was one or two ridings in PEI that had higher voter turnout than we had in Saanich Gulf Islands. But the same thing happened for Dr. Andrew Weaver, a Nobel Prize-winning climate scientist who became the second Green elected in Canada, despite our perverse first-past-the-post system. He won in Oak Bay Gordon Head, a riding in Victoria, BC. He also had the highest voter turnout in BC in that election. This held true as well when David Kuhn became the first elected Green Party member in New Brunswick. In that election, the Greens became the third party in the House. There are no NDP members in the House, the legislature for New Brunswick. Again, David Kuhn had very high voter turnout. But we are all in awe of the voter turnout in the riding in which Peter Bevan Baker won. Because not only did Peter win with 55% of the vote, In his riding, there was, and for those of you who aren't sitting down in the back, you might faint, but hang on to someone. But those of you who are sitting down, you're okay. Peter's riding had 90% voter turnout. Guess what? When you offer Canadians something worth voting for, people will show up. This is a key factor in why I believe so strongly that we're going to take a lot of people by surprise in this election. We're seeing young people. Elections Canada just reported that in their special polls at universities over the last couple of days, 42,000 students have already voted. That's impressive. And I'm sure some of them voted Conservative, but by a vast majority, I'm sure most of them didn't. And I know a very large number of them voted Green. Because the Green Party is the party of a future. Green Party is a party of a future of confidence, of hope, of principled and dedicated service to country. That's where Bruce's personal record stands out. That he would, although told that he had to vote a certain way, knowing it was polar opposite to what his constituents wanted, did the right thing. Okay, well, he promised his constituents in the election in which he won that seat, after Jack Layton told him, it's okay, do what your constituents want. You can make that promise, you can conduct that, you can conduct your campaign. It wasn't what I wanted either, of course, right? But it's what my constituents wanted that matters. And that's the difference. The Greens stand up for our constituents. We represent our constituents in Parliament. We don't take orders top down. Goodness knows it's actually against, I don't know if you've mentioned this before in other meetings, but it actually is against Green Party policy and against what our members set as policy to ever have a vote. And it's possible to work by consensus. It's totally possible. There are Green parties in 80 countries around the world. And there are Greens in parliaments in more than 20 of them. And in those, and certainly in the European Parliament, a lot of Greens in Germany. Right now, a friend of mine that I have come to know because we both work at the climate negotiations. You know, the UN climate negotiations are coming to a deadline. The treaty negotiations begin a mere 40 days after our election ends. And in the last year or so, with a new government in Sweden, the Deputy Prime Minister of Sweden conducts the negotiations for the government of Sweden. She's their chief climate negotiator and Deputy Prime Minister. Her name is Åsa Romson. She's the Green Party member, one of a number, in a coalition government. The process of finding consensus isn't easy, but it's far preferable to essentially importing into Canada a system of government. It's like, for those of you who are ecologists, it's an alien species. Our system of government doesn't have top-down control. Westminster parliamentary democracy does not involve electing a prime minister. Westminster parliamentary democracy involves electing, in this election, 338 members of parliament. And at least in theory, under our constitutional principles, we could all show up after this election and look around a room about this big and say, okay, who should be prime minister? Who do we think would be the best at the job, really? Well, yes, well, there's that. Someone might say that. We say, well, okay, well, what are the qualities we're looking for in a prime minister? Someone who works well with others. That'd be good. Someone who listens. Would be a good thing. Someone who can forge political consensus so we move ahead as a country and stop having Parliament look like a sandbox for the immature. So this is something we could do, but for the fact of the creation and growth of organized political parties with top-down leadership. Bruce said we were going to change our name to the Party Party. A woman I had the great honor to work with, Petra Kelly, was the founder of the German Green Party. And she used to describe the Green Party as the anti-party party, because we really believe in grassroots democracy and we walk the talk. And it's not easy. It's easier having a dictator, especially if you are the dictator. If you're under the thumb of the dictator, not so much fun. So I want to open up the floor to questions. I'm still looking around. There's a lot of people standing in back, and I still see some empty chairs up here. I'm going to pass it to Bruce for a moment, but I do urge you to be comfortable. Wave your hand if you want to have a microphone brought to you. Our platform was the first party platform this election up and online. It's fully costed. I'm happy to answer questions about absolutely anything on your mind, and I want to again thank you all for being here. Bruce, you have something else to add?
Nope, let's do it. So, there's a man who's about to ask a question. He put his hand up first. He is a loyal supporter, and he's also the loyal opposition sometimes. I'm never sure which one I'm going to get, but we're going to let Tom Chauvin ask a short question, Tom. And we'll run the microphone over to you. Our runner tonight is Michael Heyer. If you've noticed that there are something like 3,500 signs around town, Michael's the guy. And just for the record, we only put signs on places that ask for them. Once in a while there's an accident, but we don't put them up on public property. Whereas the other parties are going to do very well in the election, just a second, they're going to do very well in the election if squirrels and moose and spruce trees and empty lots can vote. Tom.
Okay, I'll keep it short. I brought this up before at the city council meeting, but there wasn't very many people here. I want to make sure everybody hears this. I live on $19,000 a year. I retired, and it's not very much money. And I believe that if anybody's making under $20,000 a year or $20,000 a year, that whatever they get from the Canada Pension Plan should be matched exactly by the old age security plan. That's what I believe. Now, what is this party going to do? That's what I believe, because that old age security is general revenue. I've been paying into that for 45 years, and I got nothing to show for what I've done.
Yeah, Tom, thank you for raising the question. What the Green Party believes is that no one should pay tax till you're making over $20,000 a year, and that pension plan income shouldn't be part of that because you're not even making 20 till you get there. We also believe in eliminating poverty in Canada for everyone with a guaranteed livable income. And then when you make money, it would be on top of that. So there'd be a guaranteed livable income. It's a very good idea. It has a lot of support, but we're the first political party to say, let's do it. In the short term, till we get there, we want to increase the GIS for our seniors. We want to make sure no senior is living in poverty. We want to bring in a pharmacare plan to ensure that prescription medicine is available and at, well, basically no cost to anyone who's, it should be part of our healthcare system is what I'm trying to say. We need to, a lot of people don't know this. When I first started digging into the pharmacare issue, I have to admit I didn't know it. That we're the only country with a universal healthcare system that doesn't include prescription medicine. We're the only ones. And we are paying way more for prescription drugs than the countries that have pharmacare plans. As a matter of fact, we're even paying more than they do in the United States. So if you look, for instance, just in terms of the pressures, I know a lot of seniors who are on low income and it's fixed income and end up deciding, well, do I fill this prescription my doctor wants me to have, or do I eat this muff? What are the choices? Not good choices. But to give you an example of how much more we're spending for prescription drugs than we ought to be, in Canada, a yearly prescription for Lipitor costs over $800. The very same drug from the very same manufacturer in New Zealand, where they have pharmacare, they pay $15. Over $800 versus $15. So if the words rip-off are coming to your mind, the large pharmaceutical industries are charging more because they can get away with it. And we need to have a crown corporation that bulk buys prescription drugs, brings down the price, and then we need to have it part of our healthcare system. Those are some of the things, Tom. There's a lot. We also have a specific plan for seniors that's a plank in our platform. It has a section to deal with affordable housing. It calls for a national dementia strategy. It calls for taking the steps that help people age in place, stay in their own homes as long as they want to. There are a lot of elements to this, but the story you just shared with us is a perfect, and of course I hate to speak of you as a perfect example, Tom. You deserve better from this, from the country you contributed to for so long. And we need to fix it.
Tom, I'd just like to add one more comment. I introduced in the last 7 years 23 pieces of legislation, more legislation than has been introduced over the whole history of this riding. And one of them was the Seniors' Bill of Rights. So it didn't pass this time, but if re-elected, I'm going to reintroduce it. It's online on brucehire.ca, and have a look at it and see what you think. This young lady will be third, but second is Paul Berger. Paul.
Hi, thank you. I'm speaking as a longtime Green voter, but as someone who unfortunately this time is deeply troubled and uncertain of how I'm going to vote. And the reason is that I think our political parties, the strength and coherence of climate change policies range from criminal, which is of course the Conservatives, to disastrous, which is the Liberals, to dangerous, which is the NDP, to inadequate, which is the Green Party. And the reason for that is that the Green Party has a very, I think, solid idea that we need to remove fossil fuel subsidies, for example, but at the same time talks about building east-west pipelines for Canadian oil sovereignty and building upgraders in Alberta. Neither of which could happen, especially the upgraders in Alberta would have been built if they could have been built profitably, so they would be massive subsidies. And we're in 2015 now. We can't afford to be building massive new fossil fuel infrastructure. The first time I've heard a Green Party candidate speak intelligently about this was last night when Christy Radbourne said, you're right, Paul, we can't afford to build more fossil fuel infrastructure. So I want to ask you to try to earn my vote, to not do a political runaround kind of answer, but to say, we understand the science. We want to align our party with the science, not with the politics of trying to get elected, and say, we need to stop. We're in a hole, we've got to stop digging. We need to get out of this and stop building massive fossil fuel infrastructure.
Well, number one, I never give runaround political answers. So here's this, you have to, not you, society has to accept, and I know you accept, that most of the known reserves of fossil fuels, globally and in Canada, have to stay in the ground. I'm the only person in any political party in Canada who's going to say that out loud. We have in our platform that we have to halt expansion in the oil sands. That's something that nobody else is going to say out loud. We have targets and plans to reach them, to go to, and actually, by 2050, our target, I want to be fair to all the other parties, by 2050, the NDP has the same target that we do, 80% below 1990 levels greenhouse gas emissions by 2050, which is virtual decarbonization of our economy. So here's the thing, in terms of pipelines, we're the only party opposing Keystone and Energy East and Enbridge and Kinder Morgan. We're the only party that says that none of these pipelines make any sense whatsoever. So here's the discussion that we have to have as a country. And I'm going to walk through it, and it may take a minute or two, so please forgive me. We have no energy policy. We've had policies from Stephen Harper for the last 9 years that were divisive, basically saying, for the sake of the Alberta economy, we're going to put all our eggs in the bitumen basket. And even from an economic point of view, this was a terrible idea. Let the Canadian dollar rise to be above par with the US dollar tourism. But it benefited, for a while, a boom and bust cycle, which was fueling oil sand mines expansion. Now, I know some people hate it when I say oil sands. I say oil sands because, number one, it's what people in Alberta think is important for them to hear, and I want to keep the conversation going. And two, because a pollster who did an extensive survey of how Canadians feel about bitumen and the Athabasca oil sands / tar sands found that people were far more likely to oppose it when it was called oil sands than when it was called tar sands. They figured out this is a longer story. So to make sure that...
2009.
What?
In 2009, that poll was done?
They continue. I'm sorry, Paul. This is an ongoing piece of work that the environmental movement keeps paying for. They go back and they keep surveying. It hasn't changed. So linguistics aside, I know that I've had emails from you, and I know you think it's wrong of me to call them oil sands, but let's get back to why they're not going to expand. We have to, in this country, have a conversation to develop an energy policy. At the moment, we're the only industrialized country that actually has no energy plan whatsoever. It's all ad hoc, which is how Stephen Harper was able to put all our eggs in the bitumen basket. There was no plan. We need to think like a country again, which means making sure that Alberta doesn't feel alienated when we start saying, we've got to get rid of fossil fuels. There's got to be a place in Confederation for every province. There's got to be jobs in every province for every Canadian. We don't want people feeling that it's us versus them, ever. So the first thing Alberta should do to reduce greenhouse gases, it's shut down its coal-fired power plants. Coal-fired power for electricity in Alberta creates exactly as many greenhouse gases as the oil sands, as of today. Now, the oil sands are currently producing 2 million barrels of bitumen a day. Stephen Harper and the Conservative Party, and maybe even Rachel Motley now, we don't know, wants to have 6 million barrels a day in the oil sands. So that would be triple the amount of greenhouse gases is right now. So here's where Greens think things make sense, but we don't have jurisdiction over provincial decisions. We need to get everybody to sit down at the same table. We need an energy policy. Within that energy policy, we have to have a climate policy. The climate policy that makes the most sense is to immediately get rid of coal-fired electricity the same way Ontario has done. Get Alberta to shut down its coal-fired power plants. At the same time, we don't want the oil sands expanding. Every time they're scraping bitumen out of the ground, there's a tremendous amount of water wasted, there's contamination, there's loss of boreal forest, there's a tremendous amount of environmental damage. And what are they doing? They're trying to ship it in pipelines to be processed in other countries. So the compromise here, and it would never work, I would never accept a compromise if it didn't fit with a trajectory of bringing greenhouse gases down like this, is to have Alberta continue at 2 million barrels a day, but process it there. That means no bitumen diluent pipelines, no Energy East, no Keystone, no Kinder Morgan, no Enbridge. But it also has to include no coal-fired electricity and a commitment to move off fossil fuels by 2050. So we also need an east-west electricity grid to bring renewable energy into Alberta so it doesn't need coal while it builds up its own renewable strategy. So the bottom line here is, if you think we're inadequate, I hope you look again at the set of commitments for a fee and dividend plan, for putting a price on carbon wherever the pollution occurs, with border adjustments to move us off fossil fuels, a renewable energy strategy, an energy efficiency strategy to make sure we stop leaking pollution from all our buildings. Bottom line, we are the only party that's saying we have to stop expanding the oil sands, and part of the reason we are able to do that is that we know we can help the economy of Alberta even out the boom and bust cycles by allowing them to process it there while we turn away the tankers that are currently bringing all the oil for Eastern Canada that comes in from Norway and Kazakhstan, Nigeria, Saudi Arabia, and Venezuela. We can turn those ships away by using domestic supplies in decreasing amounts as we head towards our target of elimination of fossil fuels from Canada's economy. It's the only plan I can think of that makes sense. It may not ever be good enough for you, Paul, but if you don't vote Green in this election, the chances of having a successful Paris climate negotiation go way down, because I can promise you, without a strong Green voice in Parliament, as much as Justin Trudeau or Tom Mulcair, singularly or together, are far better than Harper. Neither one of them has paid a single bit of attention to climate negotiations, and they don't have enough time to learn it between October 20th and November 30th. I need Bruce Hyder in Parliament with me to make sure we come back from Paris with the treaty the world needs, and we need to vote.
Hi, my name is Allison. I'm an undecided voter, and the reason I decided to come out was because of I saw you at the first debate, and I was very impressed. I'd just like to know how a green government would deal with ISIS. This is obviously a very real issue, and I don't think anyone would disagree with me. Anyway, there you go.
Allison, thank you. And I'm going to try to give shorter answers. I had to go into depth with Paul because I'm begging him for a vote, and I want him to know that I love him dearly, and all of our emails have been of a very high quality of exchange. But Allison, you've changed the topic totally.
That's right. I write an argument and you don't write back.
Oh no, that's not fair, Paul. I write back to you. I don't think I left any email unanswered, but we can follow up after. Allison, on ISIS. There's no question that the organization that calls itself ISIS has got to be the most brutal, sadistic, horrific military organization, maybe ever, but certainly in living memory. Now, what fueled ISIS was flawed, illegal Western interventions into the region. Had George Bush never invaded Iraq, we wouldn't now have ISIS. Had we not had Canadian involvement and the mission in Libya, which this was very recent, of course. This was the bombing mission was one of the first votes, well, certainly the first time as an elected member of Parliament in June 2011 that I was the only member of Parliament to vote against something that all my colleagues voted for. But I voted against the continued bombardment of Libya, partly because I was already concerned what was going to happen in Syria. We went into Libya using the excuse, which is a UN doctrine, of the responsibility we had to protect innocent civilians from Muammar Gaddafi, at that point dictator of Libya. We went in saying it was responsibility to protect. To make a long story short, we converted it to regime change, and we allowed rebel forces. We actually decided that the rebel forces were the legitimate government of Libya. I got up in my house and I asked John Baird, who was Minister of Foreign Affairs at the time, there are Al-Qaeda leaders among the rebel forces. Aren't you worried, I couldn't say you because I have to speak to the Speaker, Mr. Speaker isn't the Minister of Concern, that the Al-Qaeda forces in the rebel groups that we have just acknowledged to be the legitimate government of Libya could in fact be dangerous, and that the armaments that Muammar Gaddafi has stored up in those warehouses in Tripoli and all around Libya could fall into the hands of groups like Al-Qaeda. Now, up to that point, Al-Qaeda was the worst group we'd ever heard of. ISIS didn't exist yet. And John Baird said, well, we may not know who will replace Muammar Gaddafi, but we can be sure of one thing. They can't be worse than Muammar Gaddafi. That was a big mistake. So we contributed, we weren't the only country, we contributed to Libya becoming a failed state. Sure enough, the armaments in those warehouses did end up with ISIS. Literally, tractably ended up with ISIS. What is ISIS doing now? ISIS is part of a group of what we might call terrorist groups, rebel groups, trying to depose Bashar al-Assad, the dictator who rules Syria. Bashar al-Assad has killed 8 times more people than ISIS has killed. We're also selling tanks to Saudi Arabia, where they still behead people, but they don't put it on YouTube. We have a lot of very nasty, complicated options in that region, and bombing ISIS in aerial bombardment, such as is going on right now, does not help refugees and will not end the civil war in Syria. We have ISIS fighting with Al-Qaeda and al-Nusra against Bashar al-Assad. Bashar al-Assad is supported by Hezbollah, which is in there working with him. Now we have Iran and Hamas coming to the also against Bashar al-Assad. There are no good guys in this fight except for the innocent civilians who are trying to get out desperately, clinging to boats, drowning on wash. We've seen all these images. I don't need to bring them back to your mind. This situation, our view of ISIS is that we need to confront it. We need to do everything we can to end the existence of ISIS. But bombing missions won't do it. Be far more effective. And by the way, their recruitment has gone way up. Since we started bombing, it's exactly what they wanted. What we need to do is stop the flow of money to ISIS. How do we do that? They're selling black market oil into Turkey. We could assist Turkey, allegedly part of their NATO allies, to fortify their border and stop allowing ISIS to sell black market oil into Turkey. The other horrific way that ISIS is making money these days, I don't know how many of you have heard of this, they're selling black market archaeological treasures. They loot the temples before they blow them up. There's got to be a way to stop the flow of money to ISIS. There's got to be a way to stop the flow of weapons to ISIS. Canada is the only country in the industrialized world that has not yet signed the Arms Control Treaty to deal with conventional arms, like tanks, like ground-to-air missiles, like armaments of all kinds. So it's a complicated situation. This answer, as long as it's been, only scratches the surface. To save people from Syria, we need to accept more refugees. To help people in Syria, we need to stop the war. Most of those refugees would like to go home, if they still have a home, back in Syria, but not under Bashar al-Assad and not at risk of kidnapping by ISIS. So a much more robust, right now there isn't really much of an effort, of diplomacy, engaging some of the countries that could really call an end to the war. That would include Russia, which is now playing a very dangerous role in the region, and the United States, and China, and Iran, and it'd be awfully good to get Saudi Arabia, which is at least rumored, unreliable rumors, to be funding ISIS. We need to get all those countries to get their act together, and someone in that coalition, and I think it should be Canada, needs to stand up and say, bombing isn't working. Let's try to stop with a ceasefire. Let's try to bring these groups to the table. I know no one believes you can negotiate with ISIS, but they're after something, and it's probably a piece of turf. But what they are right now is brutal and murderous, and we must find ways to stop them that actually work. What we're doing doesn't work.
Yes, ma'am.
I just want you to tell everybody again, Bruce, what happened to your climate change bill, just in case anybody here doesn't know.
When I went to Parliament the first time with Jack Layton, Jack and I talked, and he asked me if I would reintroduce his climate change bill, which did not pass in the previous Parliament. And so I agreed to do that, and he made me one of the 2 environmental critics. And so I worked on it for a year and a half, and we rewrote it, updated it, and tweaked it a little bit, but it was very similar to Jack's bill. And so I invested a year and a half of my life and a lot of dinners, wine, beer, single malt scotch, coffees, lunches, and arm twisting. And the Bloc was on side, the NDP was on side, and the Conservatives would never vote for it, ever. And so I had to persuade the Liberals. And the environment critic for the Liberals, David McGuinty, didn't like it for whatever his reason was. And so the Liberals had an internal battle for a long time over whether they would do it. So here's a fun story I haven't told publicly before. So we have a really lousy elevator in the House of Commons, which goes from Parliament up to the 6th floor where the restaurant is. So 2 days before the 3rd reading vote on Bill C-311, the climate change bill, I'm in an elevator with Michael Ignatieff and one of his staffers, so just the 3 of us. And the elevator got stuck. So poor Mr. Ignatieff was trapped with me for a little while until the elevator got unstuck. And I said, Mr. Ignatieff, I sure hope you're going to vote for Bill C-311 on Wednesday. This was Monday. And he said, well, Mr. Heyer, I'm not really that fond of your climate change bill, and our caucus has been divided. My environment critic doesn't really like it. But you have painted me into a corner. I have thousands of emails, hundreds of phone calls, and you have, these are his exact words, you have infected and corrupted well over half my caucus. So on Wednesday, Mr. Heyer, you buy yourself a good bottle of wine and a good steak dinner, and actually it was a vegetarian dinner when I did it. And he said, because your bill's going to pass. So if you look at that video, you'll see a big grin on my face because it's my bill, private member's bill. I get to stand up first because I know it's going to pass. So that was the good news. And the bad news was the Senate sat on it for 6 months, but then finally Stephen Harper ordered it killed in the Senate, and the Liberals kind of looked the other way. And in 1 hour it was killed. So I have the dubious distinction, well, there have only been 5 bills that were killed in the Senate, passed in the elected House. But 4 of them, they had extensive debate. I have the only bill in the history of Canada killed in the Senate without debate in the history of all of Canada. What a dubious honor that is. So anyway, that's the story. We will introduce something similar, perhaps the same bill, when we are in that coalition or minority government soon, and hopefully this time we will get a plan. Thanks very much.
Trying to be differential to both sides of the room.
Michael. All right, Robin, and then this young man. You're next. Please.
Could you, Elizabeth, please address, a number of my NDP friends tell me, well, the Greens don't care about social justice. And so I argue with them. But I'd like to hear it from you. And if you could perhaps use as an example the people who live near the tar sands who are dying, how the Green Party will help those people before 2050.
Right. Just for those of you who are standing in back, there are some seats that have opened up in front here. I just want you to know that they really, it's so wonderful to have such a full house, but I do want people to be comfortable. I just happened to see today, is it Robin, sorry. Robin, today I saw a blog on Rabble. I don't know the person who wrote it, but it was 6 reasons why the Green Party is the most progressive party in Canada. And it just went through our platform. And in terms of social justice, we are the only party, as you just heard, calling for an end to poverty. In this election, we've seen the NDP move more towards the center, and the Liberals actually may have outflanked the NDP somewhat on the left, but they're all basically in the middle, mushy place, where every appeal is to the middle class. And there's no question that people at all stratas of Canadian society, except for the super rich, find themselves stressed, find it very difficult to make ends meet. There is, though, a growing gap between the wealthiest and the poorest. And I raised this during the Maclean's debate, so some of you might remember, that I think it's a shocking statistic that the 86 wealthiest families in Canada have the same combined wealth as 11.4 million Canadians. 86 families versus 11.4 million. So the gap between what I love Bernie Sanders' turn of phrase, the billionaire class, the 1% and the 99% has happened in Canada, and it didn't used to be like that. So where we stand on social justice is firmly with real practical policies. Where we stand on environmental rights is that we would open the Constitution to enshrine environmental rights. Where we stand on people living near toxic materials and having their health affected is we stand for human health and proper and full and tight pollution controls. I'm not criticizing Tom Mulcair, Justin Trudeau, and certainly Stephen Harper, have never gone on a hunger strike to stand with people who were of low income and living next to a toxic waste site. But I went, it was the year 2001, I sat in front of Parliament Hill for 17 days on a hunger strike till the Liberal government caved and said they'd do something about the Sydney tar plants. We take human health, we take toxicity from pollution, we take it personally, and we really stand for people who are the victims of environmental racism, particularly First Nations and low-income communities living near sources of toxic pollution. And Bruce wants to ask.
So somewhere at the back, we have a handout that I hope you avail yourselves of. If it's not on the website today, it will be tomorrow. Today we had a press conference here in the Bistro. A very successful press conference. It was very lively. It was a lot of fun. But we introduced a Green Party Northern Ontario platform. So it's very long, but I'd just like to read you the headlines, Robin, which I think will give you an idea. I'm only going to read some of the headlines. A sustainable jobs plan. Abolish post-secondary tuition fees, in other words, free tuition for university and college. Partnering with First Nations for truly responsible resource development and long-term public interest. Putting small businesses first ahead of large multinational corporations. Supporting local food and small-scale producers. Restoring public health care. Implementing a national senior strategy. Eliminating poverty. Building strong First Nations and Indigenous communities, reversing CBC radio funding cuts, Restoring Canada Post, keeping our communities safe, electing members of Parliament who are honest and ethical, improving our electoral system, restoring Canadian public science and the role of evidence in formulating public policy, creating a Council of Canadian Governments, which would include federal, provincial, territorial, municipal, and First Nations to plan a better Canada. Repealing Bill C-51. Defending Canada's sovereignty regarding so-called free trade deals, and reversing Harper's legacy of anti-democratic behavior. And that's just a partial list. So does that help give you an idea of the depth and breadth? Thanks very much, Robin. Michael, where are we?
Hi, can you hear me? Okay, good.
Hi.
My name's Kylie. It's a pleasure to be listening to all four of you. My question is, what is your opinion, or if you have an opinion, on the effects of animal agriculture on our environment, whether it be water levels or the ozone or greenhouse gases?
I'll start, and then if any of my compatriots here want to answer. Michael Heyer made me join the Green Party. He made me do it. You can blame him or thank him, whichever you choose. And now he's pretty much turned me into a vegetarian because he explained to me in great detail how much methane comes from cows. So I've compromised. I still eat some cheese and milk and eggs, but I'm not eating beef anymore. So that's just my little entree. But Christy, I think, wanted to say something.
Thank you for the question. One of the things that many of you may or may not know, I got this question once a long time ago in a master's level class in ecological education, and it was, what uses most of our water? And the choices were household use, industrial use, and agriculture use. Anyone want to hazard a guess? Agriculture. I'm talking to the converted here. So knowing that, the Greens really got an agricultural strategy to reduce ourselves back to small and medium-sized farms. The only type of farm that's actually increasing right now in Canada are the 500,000 plus income set. Every other single income set of farm is decreasing right now at alarming rates. And I'll just kind of throw in there the free trade piece. When free trade disadvantages farmers and there's a loss period, the only people who can weather that loss are large corporate farms. And so those large corporate farms are where we're getting the big methane sinks. That's where we're getting big manure ponds, if you've ever seen them as well, and then the runoff that comes from them, and the agricultural effects are from toxins that run off of their pesticides, etc. So our agriculture policy not only supports helping and supporting small to medium family farms, but also organic farms. So taking that pesticide piece out of our food waste as well. What's interesting about that, I just read a little quote from Jane Goodall, it said, and it really summed it up for me, and I used it last night as well. It said, how could we ever have thought that growing our food with poisons was a good idea? So we are committed to reducing toxins on our farms as well, promoting and supporting and incentivizing organic farming, and we do understand the water issue. We know that beef is one of them. If you've ever had a cow, there's a certain liter per beef that you eat. But we are committed to that and have a really great strategy. So another reason I'm working for the Greens.
We're the only party that talks about eating less meat. I haven't eaten meat since I was 10. We're a party that also has very strong policies around animal rights and livestock treatment. But we also have, obviously very honest about this, we've got candidates who are beef producing, but they happen to be producing beef on grass-fed beef, and they're not doing it with hormones and injections and chemicals. So we're not yet exactly where someone would want to be, but we're very well aware that a huge proportion of greenhouse gases come from agriculture. And another piece I just want to throw in, come from globalized trade in agriculture. So the transportation and the redundant transit from farmers in Ontario selling their tomatoes down the highway to the US while the US grown tomatoes come back up to us. There's an awful lot of hardwired carbon pollution associated with corporatized agriculture, which feeds into Christie's comments about the large-scale farms. And I just want to make a plea for everyone to consider, this is one of the areas of policy we want to create with our Council of Canadian Governments. How can a country that wants to have food security have a situation where most farmers can't earn an income on their farm and have to have off-farm income to make it through the year? So we need to pay a lot more attention to sustainability in agriculture, to issues like how much carbon pollution comes from agriculture, but also make it possible for people to earn an income growing us our food. Because I don't want to be buying it all on boats that come in from People's Republic of China.
Apparently we're doing live streaming right now, so if you go to a website, you have a phone, and tell people go to www.NetNewsLedger.com and press live stream. And people all over Canada will be able to watch this. All over the world. Thank you.
So don't pick your nose. Michael, where's the next? It turns out that Michael's the keeper of the microphone, so you'll have to catch his attention, tall green guy. Yes, sir.
Hi, Elizabeth. It's Don. And as you know, Canadians, the vast majority who pay taxes they owe, want to know that everyone else is paying taxes. On a federal level, we won't talk about Christy Clark and what she's trying to do in regards to loopholes in BC, but on a federal level, the Canadian Revenue Tax Agency and legal experts say the tax regime is too weak to do very much about foreign investors across this country that are buying up real estate and not paying any capital gains. What can you do about this in the next 4 years, as well as the others that are putting their money offshore? If you could bring in some of this, if you could bring in some of the tax money that the billionaires aren't paying in this country, maybe we can afford to increase what we're doing for the seniors, help our healthcare system, and all the other social programs in this country. But we're never going to be able to do it unless we go after these tax evaders.
Absolutely, Don. Thank you. And you'll see, yes, a round of applause for that. That's absolutely true. There's hundreds of billions of dollars in tax havens. One of the more startling things that I love being a member of Parliament. I don't think I've mentioned this to you before. What an honor it is to work in Parliament, and the kinds of information you can get and dig in and learn. So the Auditor General has been reporting for years that the Canadian Revenue Agency is ignoring the fat cats. I think has anybody here ever been harassed by CRA for a little bit of money that normal people might owe? Yeah. Do they ever give you interest back when they owe you money? Do they charge interest when we owe them money? The Auditor General pointed this out, which I found astonishing. The CRA got itself a very fancy software program a few years ago that was ideal at identifying where money was being hidden offshore. But it hasn't been using that information or going after those people. They've been going after small amounts of money that average Canadians might owe by accident or even dispute the case with CRA. So we have in our budget, I think it's pretty modest, an additional, I think it's $3 billion a year by going after the offshore tax havens. We also, by the way, we know where there's a lot more cash sloshing around, and that's in the bank accounts of really large corporations. When Harper brought down the tax rate for large corporations, now I don't want to lose you all in statistics, but in the year 2000, Canada's tax rate for large corporations was 28%. When Stephen Harper became Prime Minister in 2006, it had gone down to 20%. By 22%, thank you, Bruce. And in 2009, it was 19%. We think it should go back up to 19%. It's currently 15%. So 28% to 15% between the year 2000 and the year 2014. And what happened? Well, we were told that by reducing the corporate tax rate on really large corporations, that they were, and this is what the late Jim Flaherty called them, he called them the job creators. They were going to have all those great savings on their taxes, and they were going to reinvest it and hire loads of people. It was our former governor of the Bank of Canada, Mark Carney, who identified what was happening with the savings on the taxes, which was actually at 15%, we were charging half what the US government charges in taxes to large corporations. So Mark Carney called it the dead money. They're not out there creating jobs. It's sloshing around $613 billion to date of just cash that they've hoarded. They're not creating jobs. So it's time to go after that money, not all of it, 19% tax on large global corporations. It makes sense. And going after the offshore tax havens, which we can do. Everybody should pay their fair share. And average hardworking people pay more than their fair share. And I'm going to do it again. I love Bernie Sanders' phrase. The billionaire class is not paying their fair share.
One more thing. Also, the Chinese that are coming into this country that are buying up this property and claiming they make $30,000 a year when they're actually making millions of dollars. They're getting free healthcare, services, and they're not paying a thing.
Don, I'm going to answer it because I really want to. But Stephen Harper created a program to encourage this. He created a very skewed immigration system where we prefer the $1 million investor. They get a red carpet treatment. They put their money into Canadian purchase, mostly real estate, which skews our market. They don't live here. And a recent study, it came out in the spring, so I remember reading it at my desk in about April. This billionaire investor class that gets fast-tracked to come into Canada, compared to refugees who come here with a shirt on their back and that's it, within 2 years, the refugees are paying more in income tax than the millionaire investors.
Hi, my name's Peter. I have a question and a suggestion. My question is, what are you going to do about the Senate? How are you going to reform it? And my suggestion is, if you can't reform it, appoint children.
I'm going to start, and what I'm going to say is not Green Party policy. Elizabeth may disagree with me, but I have a wild idea. My wild idea is that it's very hard to get proportional representation in the House for a variety of constitutional reasons, including requiring agreement by all the provinces. No, I'm talking about the House, thank you. I don't think so, but anyway, my point is, my idea is that it would be easier and faster to make the Senate proportional as an interim statement. So what I would do is on each election, based on the national vote, if the Purple Party gets 20% of the national vote, the leader of the Purple Party gets, just for that period of that House, to appoint 20 senators. And then we instantly have at least one House as an interim step towards proportionality of both houses. But Elizabeth, I sense, is not entirely agreeing with me here, so I'll turn it over to Elizabeth.
I'm not disagreeing. It's actually Green Party policy that the Senate should be elected by proportional representation. The one place I was quibbling is that passing a law to get rid of first past the post in Canadian elections, it's not a constitutional issue. We can pass it before the next election. We can get rid of first past the post before the next election, which I'm very excited about. As far as the Senate goes, number one, I think it's a bigger priority to fix the House of Commons. I think the abuse of power by the Prime Minister is a much bigger threat to Canada than any of the shenanigans that go on in the Senate. And as far as your other suggestion, well, brilliant and creative, have you no concern for children? They have to, but anyway, in all seriousness, we need to fix the House of Commons and take apart the powers of the Prime Minister's office. We do need to reform the Senate, but that requires opening the Constitution, which means it's a long-term project, but one worth doing.
Hi, my name's Ian. I know we're all election obsessed right now, but I wanted to ask, after the election, what do you think that we can do outside of the electoral process to push for a progressive effort by Canada at the Paris climate talks? I know that 350.org is doing a climate welcome at Sussex Drive in November for whoever the new Prime Minister is, and I hope people might want to join me at that because I'd like to be there, but beyond that, what do you think we can do?
Well, thank you, Ian. And this is, I live for the moment the election is over and we can get back to real work, like working to make sure that a different Canadian government actually is prepared to make the difference in Paris. I should have mentioned it to Paul earlier, we're the only party that has endorsed the LEAP manifesto. We're on board with the kinds of changes we really need to make. And preparing for Paris in short form, here's what I'll tell you. We need to have not just better targets from Canada going into the negotiations. We need to have, and I don't want to be unkind to the senior civil servants in the Department of Foreign Affairs and Environment, who for the last 9 years under Stephen Harper have been our negotiators. But to put it gently, no one in the world likes them anymore. So if we're going to go into a climate negotiation and make a difference, we need to recruit an A-team of diplomats, preferably the kinds of people who were there and successfully negotiated in Kyoto and in Montreal, who have the respect and personal networks around the world, so we can step up in Paris as the country that drives everyone to deeper targets, more binding language, and to be ready for that, we've got to get to work the day after the election. I sure hope, and I have fairly high expectations, that whether it's Justin Trudeau or Tom Mulcair, they'll be glad to have help. Neither of those other parties have sent any members of Parliament to climate negotiations since Stephen Harper decided opposition members of Parliament weren't welcome on our delegation. I kept going, as I mentioned earlier, working with Green Party MPs from around the world. I have a pretty strong sense, which you can probably appreciate. You can probably feel this visceral sense of urgency that I have. We've got to fix those climate negotiations. They're not nearly aggressive enough yet. And I have such faith in what this country can do when we step up on the side of the angels. And everyone's going to be so happy at the Paris negotiations in other countries to say, oh, thank God, Canada's back.
I'd just like to add something about climate plans. The Conservatives, of course, don't want to curb oil at all. We all know Harper works for big oil. But the Liberals don't have a plan either, and Justin has just said he'll leave it up. He said he'll work with the provinces. What he's really saying is he'll leave it up to the provinces. And that is not leadership. So we have two parties with no plan. The NDP has a plan called Cap and Trade. Now, I was a member of the NDP caucus even before I was elected. That was there when they decided on cap and trade. And I tried my darndest to talk them out of it because it's a very bad plan, bureaucratic, expensive, complicated, didn't work in Europe, will put a whole lot of lawyers and carbon traders into bimmers. But the reason they went for it back then was it was different than the Liberal plan, because at that time, Stéphane Dion had a plan for carbon shifting. He had a tax and shift plan. And they had to be different than the Liberals, you know, the main tribes. We're always right, they're always wrong. So I didn't talk them out of it, and it always bothered me, and to be honest, there was another reason why I felt I had to leave. So we have a plan called carbon fee and dividend. In carbon fee, the fee parts means that we set a stiff price on oil where it comes out of the ground, or coal, or gas, or across the border. But the dividend part means that now a penny goes to government. It becomes another form of guaranteed livable income to offset the increased costs of gas and oil and those products, so that the overall effect is revenue neutral. But if you're poor, middle class, lower middle class, or if you are rich but a carbon conservative, you will actually make money on the deal. So either send me an email at bruce@brucehire.ca, I can even remember that, bruce@brucehire.ca, and I'll send you some info on it, or just Google carbon fee and dividend. Thanks so much. Michael, who's up next?
My name's Bill Crichton. This question is for Elizabeth May. The Green Party has an ambitious platform, and I believe that your platform is fully funded, do you think that you're going to have difficulty persuading voters that it's fully funded?
Thanks, Phil. Well, probably yes, because so many politicians for so many years have been pulling essentially carny sideshows with now you see it, now you don't, with shell games about money. That's what we did put the budget online so people can track it and read through. Okay, so if you get this much money, I mean, I mentioned, for instance, raising the corporate tax rate for large corporations to 19%. Well, that's $7.4 billion additional useful money. Then we go after the tax havens. Some people might say, well, you're not going to get that much money after going after tax havens. But we think we can. I've been looking, as I said, at things from the Auditor General. We show where we're going to find the money, and we also show how we're spending it. So people can quibble, but it's online, it's verifiable, and of course, we will constantly be revising it. We have revised every single year since I've been elected. Outside of election years, we've also continued to provide advice to the Finance Minister for how to have more fiscal responsibility in a context of bringing more services to Canadians. I didn't mention yet tonight, and I should have mentioned in response to Robin's question, we want to extend our healthcare system to include dentistry for low-income families, so for anyone under 18. That's what we figure we can afford under the current budget to start the process of extending healthcare to dentistry. There's a lot we can do with the priorities that we choose.
And we have a young middle-aged man named Kevin Page, who happens to be a Thunder Bay boy. And he had a look at the Green Party platform, which he likes the best, and he said it was realistic, balanced, and achievable, and he believed it. And what he said about the NDP budget, and these are his words, not mine, he said the NDP budget is so full of false assumptions and holes that it reminds him of Swiss cheese. He actually said that.
Good evening, my name is Evelyn Baxter. I'm a member of Martin Falls First Nation. I'm also a lawyer and a well-known former rabble-rouser on behalf of the Anishinaabe Nation. One of the issues that has come to my attention recently, because I've sort of been out of the loop lately doing other work for Indian residential schools, is the issue of Monsanto's product, Vision Max, being sprayed in our forests, on our territories, in violation of our Aboriginal treaty rights, and it's poisoning the blueberries, the Labrador tea, and all the other medicines that we harvest and use. We have not been consulted or accommodated, but forestry is again trumping our rights.
Before I moved to Canada, I was in charge of pesticide registration for the state of Connecticut. I am the man who first banned DDT in the United States, dealing with Monsanto. And I did glyphosate, which is it's the most widely used herbicide here, glyphosate or Roundup or Vision Max, it's all the same thing. I made it a restricted use pesticide, and I had a huge battle, which meant it couldn't be used very much. And a huge battle with Monsanto. I won, but when I moved up here, the person that followed me caved. I did a kind of a sneaky thing when I was in that position, and I have a knack for looking at chemical compounds and telling what their toxicity is likely to be, but I couldn't figure out glyphosate. So I called Monsanto, and I pretended to be one of my staff. Sorry about this. I'm honest now. And I said, I've lost the file on Monsanto. Could you please send the toxicology data again? And they sent it all. The poor person there sent it all instead of just the ones that look good. And so there was a dermal patch test on rabbits. And the dermal patch test means you take the usable amount, like the diluted amount you'd be exposed to, and you shave a spot on the rabbit, you stick a Band-Aid on it every day for a month or two. And the rabbits didn't die, and they didn't lose a lot of weight, but the males, their testicles shriveled up and fell off. Really, complete testicular atrophy. You see a lot of men crossing their legs right now. So, I am determined, now it's both a federal and provincial responsibility. The spray programs are a provincial responsibility, but the registration of glyphosate is federal. So I plan to attack it on the federal level, but I also plan to get involved at the provincial level with the spray programs. I'm determined, even if it's not within my federal role, to stop the aerial spraying of herbicides in our forests next year. I'm going to be working on it, I promise.
Meg, for your question, Evelyn, I want to approach it from the point of view that this, as you describe it, violates constitutionally enshrined rights of First Nations, that the federal government has failed in its fiduciary responsibility to ensure not just consultation, but in the wake of the Chilcotin decision, not just consultation, but an actual engagement and permission process before spraying on First Nations territory. So I've been wearing every day of this campaign. I put it on the morning of August 2nd. I haven't taken it off. The honorary witness pin I have from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. I believe that this is one of the central issues in the election that's been ignored, is the much broader question of the recommendations of the TRC. But key to all of this, especially in light of the Chilcotin decision, is that we need to enter into a very exciting, positive turning of the page in Canada in terms of relationships between First Nations, Métis, Inuit people, and the non-Indigenous settler population. I guess Stephen Harper likes to say that they're old stock people, but the reality of it is the longest traditions of use and occupation. I don't think I would insult Indigenous people of Canada by using Harper terminology and saying that you're the real old stock, but the point is, the fiduciary responsibility of the federal government is ignored whenever something happens like a spray program on First Nations territory without permission. And we have to work really hard now to recognize the impact of the Chilcotin decision. Of being in BC, there are a lot of frontline issues, but right across Canada, it's First Nations that have stood up against fracking, First Nations that have stood up against oil and gas exploration in places where the non-Indigenous population doesn't want it either. So I'm going on too long about it just to say you're right. There's a constitutional breach of the inherent rights of First Nations in ignoring use, occupation, access to traditional medicines, and contamination of them with a product the rest of us don't want either.
Good evening, Elizabeth. My name's Cal. I'm your candidate in White River, Algoma, Manitoulin, and Kapuskasing. I've been on a steep learning curve. I saw Bruce speak in marathon. He did very well. I joined the race on September 28th. I was 54. Since then, I've turned 55. So I've been on the road for a year now. I went to Hearst this morning, and I read this from Kevin Page's book. The 2015 federal election represents a critical time for the restoration of trust, debate, and scrutiny within Canada. Most importantly, it represents a critical time to members of the House of Commons where it rightly belongs. Now, I'm on a steep learning curve, like I said, but you mentioned the number 613 billion. That's the number that I've been telling people is the national debt. The Canadian government owes $613 billion. Whenever we're in deficit, we're increasing the debt, and the balanced budget of the Green Plan shows how we're going to bring the debt down. When economists like Kevin, who I was lucky to meet last week, I drove 3.5 hours for a 3-minute television interview. When we talk about the debt, they talk about it as a percentage of the GDP, but I think we should hammer them on the actual number and say it's the highest that it's ever been. They've raised it 150, and to say that they're good managers of the economy, that's just a bunch of horse feathers.
Cal, I want to thank you for that, and I'll say first of all that yes, and if there was a party that was really interested in the old-fashioned small c conservative values that was still in Parliament, other than us, it would be much more of an issue that this is the all-time high federal debt. And 24% of our federal debt was racked up under Stephen Harper. He has not been a sound economic manager, and that debt would not have had to be so extreme if he hadn't erased all our surpluses and done very risky things like increasing spending and cutting taxes in his first couple of years in minority. The other point you make, Kevin Page, is quite right. Parliament must control the public purse. You might say, well, who does control the public purse if it's not Parliament? I'll tell you who does, the Prime Minister's office. And the budgets that have been tabled in Canada, in our Parliament, over the last number of years are missing something. I don't know how many of you decide to pick up budgets and try to read them when they are handed down every spring by the Minister of Finance. I'll tell you what the budgets are missing. They're missing a budget. If you pick up the document, read it all the way through, you don't find a single page that says, here's all the revenue we're getting in. It's not like the budget I talked about that we've put online for our platform. There's no statement of here's revenue, here's expenses, here's our bottom line. And as Kevin Page, and when he was parliamentary budget officer, and he remains a friend, I talk to him all the time for help and advice. But when he was parliamentary budget officer, I said, how on earth are we supposed to know whether the budget's balanced or not? They're not including a budget. We have to wait for the estimates and then the supplementary estimates, and we may eventually figure it out. He said, you're never going to know. It's outrageous that Canadian members of Parliament talk about a budget when we don't actually get one. I think, and I've put this forward for some time now, that we should call well, at least under Stephen Harper, and he'll be gone soon, I think we should have called the budget the annual spring thick brochure. Because that's what it's been. It's been a big, thick brochure. There are scattered numbers throughout, but it's not a real budget because the Canadian Parliament does not control the public purse. The Prime Minister's office does.
Hello, my question is going to be about your proposed carbon tax. I just want to know how you plan on implementing the said carbon tax. What sort of things will be taxed with the carbon tax, and how it's going to affect middle class and the most needy of society. And also, I'm curious on your view of fracking as well.
Well, first of all, it's not a carbon tax. It's a carbon fee. And the reason it's not just smoke and mirrors or political double talk. Taxes are usually a percentage of income. If the price goes up, the percentage stays the same, but the amount of money goes up or goes down. The fee will be based on CO2 equivalents. So coal will have a fee that's higher than tar sands oil, and tar sands oil will be higher than more conventional crude, and crude will have a higher price than natural gas, etc. Right. So it's a science-based number, right, based on how much CO2 is likely to end up in the atmosphere. But not a penny is going to government. So it's paid out as an equal per capita dividend to every single Canadian, in my view, tax filer. You have to be a tax filer to get it, but you get direct money back. So if you're poor or an energy conserver, you're going to make money on this deal. If you drive a Hummer, fly to Europe every weekend, live in an 8,000 square foot poorly insulated house, you're going to pay, but boy, can you ever afford to pay, but hopefully it'll change your behavior. So it's not a tax, and the dividend will reduce poverty. And we can debate how fast that fee should go up and how fast the dividend should go up, but the larger it is, the faster it goes up, the faster CO2 will come down, and the faster we will end poverty. Thanks for the question.
We want a moratorium on fracking.
Good evening, my name's David Spackman. I work in housing in Canada, and we haven't spoken about housing this evening yet. So we know there's a crisis in affordable housing in Canada. Many people are finding it difficult. The Green Party's in a position where you may have real influence in the next parliament. One of the current parts of the housing crisis is the end of federal subsidies that go to low-income families in Canada, to nonprofits and cooperative housing. So I'd like to hear you speak in specific terms about continuing subsidies that exist now today and making sure that the most vulnerable families, some of who live here in Thunder Bay, there are subsidies ending here in 2018. So if you could address that specific issue and more broadly housing in Canada.
Thank you, David. And the detailed background papers, by the way, if you look on our website, you'll not only find our platform, but detailed background papers to each aspect of the platform. We were the first party to bring out a housing plank to the platform. Even it was, I think it was in about mid-August that we announced our housing policy, recognizing that housing has, as a policy that the Greens believe we need to act on, has three components. Social housing to ensure that there's no homelessness, that housing is a right. Housing for First Nations, Métis and Inuit, and the issue of affordable housing as a market problem for people who are actually earning money but can't get into a home. The support for social housing, and you know the numbers, it's declining to a point that I think by 2040 it'll be actually to zero. We reverse that and restore funding. The federal government has to get back involved in housing. CMHC has to get back involved in social housing. We have to apply the Housing First strategy and increase the support for to deal with issues like supremacy of Parliament.
Liberal or NDP.
Large numbers, as I've had so many people say to me this year that they're so happy they don't have to vote holding their nose.